Alani Davis had weathered weeks of Ethan Knight's torment at Northwood High. The predator saw nothing more than a quiet, new black student, someone who had learned to bow her head and absorb whatever entitled boys like him decided to inflict. Then, one sun-drenched afternoon in the parking lot, Ethan concluded that his words were no longer sufficient. The sharp crack of a slap against flesh reverberated across the asphalt, followed instantly by his self-satisfied laughter and the echoing cheers of his cronies. What Ethan failed to perceive beneath Alani's meticulously crafted silence were 8 years of disciplined Muay Thai training. Her fists had been forged into weapons by a Marine father who taught her that self-defense was a sacred duty. Ethan presumed she was fragile. He was catastrophically wrong, and Alani Davis was on the verge of demonstrating precisely what unfolds when a predator fatally misjudges its prey. Alani Davis glided through the glass entryways of Northwood High School, her book bag hanging from a single shoulder. The corridors unspooled before her, a bewildering labyrinth of gleaming floors and lockers splashed in school colors she had yet to commit to memory. Students gathered in their comfortable cliques, their eyes flicking toward her with the detached curiosity held only for unfamiliar faces. Lost, are we, darling? Alani pivoted toward the sound. A tall boy with sun-streaked hair, clad in a lacrosse jersey, was propped against a row of lockers, attended by 3 other boys who radiated the same effortless dominance that comes from perching atop the social hierarchy. "Just getting my bearings," Alani replied, her voice a steady, even tone. Ethan Knight. He pushed himself away from the lockers, offering his hand. "Captain of the lacrosse team. I make it a personal mission to greet new students, particularly those as exotic as you." Alani's gaze fell to his extended hand, but she made no move to accept it. "Alani Davis, and there's nothing exotic about me. I'm just black." Ethan's companions chuckled, but his smile remained perfectly intact. "A fiery one, are you? I appreciate that. Where did you come from? Port City? A big city girl, I see. Well, you'll find things are done a bit differently here at Northwood. More traditional ways, if you catch my meaning." His gaze drifted down her form in a manner that made her skin prickle with discomfort. "Lucky for you, I'm something of a local institution. Been here since day one. My ancestors practically laid the foundation for this school. How wonderful for you." Alani shifted her stance, preparing to move on. "Not so fast." Ethan sidestepped, obstructing her path. "I'm extending a hand of friendship, offering to show you the lay of the land, introduce you to the people who count. You wouldn't want to make powerful enemies on your very first day." "I'm not looking to make friends either." One of Ethan's followers, a heavy-set boy with pock-marked skin, guffawed. "She's got some nerve, Ethan. Perhaps she requires a lesson in etiquette." Alani's jaw clenched. She had encountered boys of his ilk before, in 3 separate schools spanning 2 different states. They always carried themselves as if they owned any space they happened to occupy. "Listen," Ethan purred, his voice dropping into a register he likely considered irresistible. "I could be very good to you. Look after you, the way things were in the old days. You understand what I'm saying?" His friends exploded into laughter. The corridor around them seemed to hush, other students slowing their pace to witness the unfolding spectacle. Alani felt the familiar, crushing weight of unwanted attention, the sole black face in a sea of white ones, all waiting to see how she would react to being put in her place. "I understand perfectly what you're saying," Alani stated, her voice slicing through their mirth, "and I have 0 interest." She tried to step around Ethan, but he shifted again, his arm shooting out to brace against the lockers, effectively trapping her. Now, don't be like that. I'm just trying to be helpful." A new girl, likely without a circle of friends, could surely use someone to guide her. Alani looked up at him, clocking the way his friends had subtly positioned themselves, cutting off any simple avenues of escape. She had been in similar situations before, yet something about Ethan's grin made her stomach churn. It wasn't merely predatory. It was entitled as if he genuinely believed she should feel gratitude for his condescending attention. "Lower your arm," she commanded quietly. "And if I don't?" Ethan leaned in closer. "You'll report me to the principal? My father is on the school board. Has been for 15 years. They're not going to side with some resentful new student over a night." The bell shrieked, its sound echoing down the hall. Students started to flow toward their classrooms, but Ethan and his crew remained rooted to the spot. "This dialogue isn't finished," Ethan murmured, finally dropping his arm. "Welcome to Northwood, Alani Davis. I do hope you enjoy your time here." As they swaggered away, Alani caught one of them saying, "She's going to be a fun one to break." Alani stood there for a beat, watching them vanish into the throng. Having changed schools 6 times in 4 years due to her mother's career, she had become adept at reading people and situations. This was not just standard teenage bravado. This was something far more menacing. She retrieved her class schedule and began walking toward her first period. Other students now gave her a wide berth, their gazes inquisitive, but careful not to hold for too long. News would travel swiftly about the new girl who had defied Ethan Knight on her first day. Alani found her classroom and slid inside, claiming a seat in the back corner with a clear view of the door. As the teacher started the roll call, she replayed Ethan's words. Traditional ways, the old days. She had heard that sort of veiled language before. Her father had first taught her to throw a proper punch when she was 10, immediately following her first Muay Thai lesson. Never initiate a fight, he had instructed, but always be prepared to conclude one. Surveying her new classmates, Alani had a sinking feeling she might need to recall that advice much sooner than she had anticipated. The campaign of harassment commenced the very next morning. Alani was retrieving books from her locker when Ethan materialized at her side, leaning against the neighboring locker as if he owned it. "Morning, gorgeous. Sleep well? Dream of me?" Alani refused to grant him a glance. "Move!" "Oh, come now. Don't be so frigid. I've brought a peace offering." He presented a banana. "Figured you might be peckish." His friends appeared behind him, sniggering. Alani slammed her locker door and strode away, but Ethan trailed her. "Hey, where are you off to?" "I'm attempting to be pleasant here." Alani maintained her pace, but Ethan moved sideways, cutting off her path to first period. Students in the hallway slowed, sensing the brewing conflict. You know, the majority of girls would be appreciative of this attention. Ethan Knight doesn't just converse with anyone. "Oh, lucky me," Alani breathed, trying once more to sidestep him. This time, Ethan allowed her to pass, but she could feel his stare burning into her back as she departed. Behind her, she heard him remark to his friends, "Don't you worry, she'll come around." They all do in the end. By third period, Ethan had managed to acquire her schedule. He was waiting outside her chemistry class with that same predatory grin. "Alani, what a remarkable coincidence. I was just passing through." "Your next class is on the opposite side of the campus," Alani stated without breaking her stride. "How do you know where my next class is?" Ethan fell into step beside her. "You've been asking about me? That's rather sweet." Alani's jaw tightened. She had not been asking. She had overheard 2 girls discussing Ethan's schedule during lunch. Apparently, half the student body knew his daily routine by heart. "Look, I understand," Ethan went on. "You're playing hard to get. It's endearing. But you ought to know, I always get what I desire." Alani stopped walking. "What on earth makes you believe I'm something you can acquire?" Ethan's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before returning at full intensity. "Everything is for sale, darling. One just needs to discover the correct price." The following day, Ethan was waiting by her car in the parking lot after school. Alani had borrowed her mother's Honda for the day. It was nothing spectacular, but Ethan ran his hand over the hood as if he were assessing its value. Decent ride. A little worn, but it possesses character, much like its owner. "Get away from my car. Relax. I'm not going to damage it." Just appreciating the view, he moved to block her path to the driver's door. "You know, I could give you a lift to school. My Mustang is a significant upgrade from this vehicle." "I don't require rides from you." "What do you require then?" "Money? I have an abundance. My father owns 3 automotive dealerships." Ethan stepped nearer. "Or perhaps you need protection. This school can be a harsh place for newcomers." Alani felt her hands clench into fists. "Is that a threat?" "Merely stating facts. Unfortunate things happen to people who don't belong. Accidents, misunderstandings." Ethan's voice dropped lower. "But if you align with me, no one will trouble you." Alani unlocked her car and got in, but Ethan caught the door before she could shut it. "Consider my offer," he said. "I will make it exceedingly worth your while." The harassment intensified throughout the week. Ethan appeared everywhere she went, outside her classrooms, in the cafeteria, by her locker. His remarks grew more suggestive, his accidental touches more deliberate. He would brush against her in the corridor, place his hand on the small of her back while speaking to her, stand uncomfortably close when she was at her locker. Alani first tried approaching the guidance counselor. "Mrs. Albright, I need to report an issue with another student." The counselor, a weary-looking woman in her 50s, barely glanced up from her paperwork. "What sort of issue?" "A student named Ethan Knight has been following me, making inappropriate comments, and touching me after I've told him to stop." Mrs. Albright's pen ceased its movement. "Ethan Knight, are you certain you aren't misconstruing his friendly gestures?" "Ethan is a fine young man. Star athlete, honor roll, comes from a reputable family. He told me he could be my master, like in the old days. He follows me to my vehicle. He touches me when I tell him not to." "Well," Mrs. Albright placed her pen down and looked at Alani for the first time. "Sometimes, when we are new to a place, we can misinterpret social signals. The boys here may be more forward than what you are accustomed to. It's likely just his way of making you feel welcome." Alani stared at her in disbelief. "Welcome? I suggest you try to be more receptive. Give Ethan a chance. He's truly quite charming once you get to know him." Alani left the office feeling nauseous. Meanwhile, across the school, Leo Martinez watched Alani stride past his table in the library, her jaw set with frustration. He knew that expression, the same one he wore after his own fruitless attempts to report Ethan's group for slamming him into lockers and calling him Taco Boy. Leo had been at Northwood for 2 years, ever since his family relocated from El Paso. Ethan and his friends had made those years a living hell, but Leo had learned to keep his head down, to take alternative routes through the halls, to eat his lunch in secluded corners. Watching Alani, he saw someone who had not yet learned how to become invisible. A part of him admired her refusal to yield. Another part of him dreaded what Ethan would do to someone who continued to say no. That Friday, Ethan trapped Alani by the gym doors after the final period. "You've been dodging me all week. That wounds my feelings." "Good." Ethan's smile grew icy. "You believe you're superior to me? To this place? Let me tell you something, Princess. You're not special. Just another... what?" Alani stepped toward him, her voice laced with danger. Ethan's eyes glittered. "You know what? Don't force me to say it." Alani felt something inside her chest snap. "Say it! I dare you!" For a moment Ethan looked as if he might actually do it. Then his smile returned, but it was hollow, devoid of warmth. "Soon," he said softly. "Very soon you're going to learn where you belong." Monday morning, Ethan was huddled with his friends by the trophy case, a malicious grin stretching across his face. "Today is the day, boys. Little Miss Attitude is about to learn her place." "What do you have in mind?" asked Blake, the stocky one with acne scars. "A public lesson in humility. I'm going to make her plead for my attention in front of the entire school." Ethan's eyes gleamed. "She thinks she's too good for me. Just wait until she sees what happens to girls who fail to show the proper respect." "Oh, man, you're going to get into trouble," said Chase, the tall, slender one. "For what?" "Flirting. My dad's on the school board, you recall? Besides, it'll just seem like harmless banter to any observers." Ethan cracked his knuckles. Time to tame this wild filly. His friends exchanged looks but remained silent. They had witnessed Ethan's harmless banter before. Ethan saw Alani at her locker and squared his shoulders. "It's showtime." "There's my girl," Ethan proclaimed loudly, striding over with his customary entourage. "Miss me over the weekend?" "I'm not your girl," Alani said without turning. "Oh, come on, don't be coy. Everyone knows there's something special between us." Ethan moved closer, his voice projecting across the crowded hallway. "Been telling everyone just how exotic you are." "How different?" Alani slammed her locker shut and turned to face him. "Stop calling me exotic." "Why? It's a compliment. You're not like the plain girls around here. You have that wild, untamed quality." Ethan's friends laughed, and Alani noticed more students slowing down to watch like a beautiful animal that needs to be tamed. The hallway fell silent. Alani could feel every single eye on her, waiting to see how she would react to being likened to an animal in need of breaking. You want to know what's wild and untamed? Alani's voice was perfectly steady, but her hands were trembling with suppressed rage. Your breath. When was the last time you brushed your teeth or took a shower? You smell like a locker room that's been sealed shut all summer. Ethan's smile flickered. Hey now? And speaking of plain, let's discuss your personality. You possess the depth of a puddle and the intelligence of a cinder block. The only reason any girl speaks to you is because your father's money buys you a legion of fake friends and a fraudulent reputation. Ethan's face was beginning to turn a shade of red. His friends shifted their weight uneasily. Your concept of flirting is to call girls exotic animals and talk about the old days, as if you're some kind of plantation master. Here's a news update. Those days are gone, and they're never coming back. You're nothing but a frightened little boy who can't cope with being told no. Alani stepped closer, her voice rising in volume. You think you're menacing? You think you're exceptional? You're nothing. You are a walking cliché with a trust fund and a severe case of daddy issues. The most fascinating thing about you is your car, and that's only because someone else designed it. The crowd had swelled, phones emerging to capture the scene. Ethan's face was now a deep crimson. And one final thing, Alani declared, her voice cutting through the hush. I wouldn't date you if you were the last boy on this planet. I have standards, and you don't even appear on the scale. Ethan just stood there for a moment, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The laughter from before had completely vanished. Students were now looking at him with expressions that ranged from utter shock to poorly hidden amusement. Ethan felt the humiliation sear through his chest like acid. This was not how this was supposed to unfold. She was supposed to crumble, not retaliate. His friends were staring at him, waiting to see his next move. You think you're clever? Ethan forced a laugh that sounded more like a choked bark. You think this is finished? You just made the most monumental mistake of your life. Alani turned to walk away, but Ethan's voice pursued her. Nobody speaks to me like that. Nobody. For the rest of the day, Ethan seethed. Every whisper in the hallway felt like a personal mockery. Every glance felt like a judgment. By lunchtime, the video of Alani's verbal annihilation had spread through the school like a contagion. She really got you, man, Blake said, attempting to lighten the atmosphere. But hey, at least... Shut up, Ethan snapped. Just shut your mouth. Ethan barely registered his afternoon classes. All he could picture was Alani's voice, slicing into him like a razor. The way the students had looked at him afterward, the way some had actually smiled. By the time the final bell rang, Ethan's humiliation had fermented into a potent rage. We're going to rectify this, he told his friends as they made their way to the parking lot. All of us. She wants to act tough. Let's see just how tough she really is. Alani was walking to her car when they intercepted her. Going somewhere? Ethan asked. Our conversation isn't over. Yes, it is. Alani continued walking toward her car. No, it's not. Ethan grabbed her arm, spinning her around. You humiliated me in front of the entire school, made me look like an idiot. You didn't need any help from me for that. Ethan's grip tightened. You think you're so clever, so tough? Let me demonstrate what happens to girls who don't understand their place. Alani glanced down at his hand on her arm, then back up to his face. Let go of me, or what? Let go of me right now. Ethan laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. You're going to learn some respect. His hand shot out and slapped her rear, and hard enough that the sound cracked across the parking lot. His friends erupted in laughter, and Ethan grinned, feeling as though he had finally reclaimed his dominance. There we go. Much better. For a heartbeat. Everything was still. Ethan was smiling. His friends were laughing, and a few students who had been heading to their cars had paused to watch. Alani stood frozen for a single charged moment. Then she turned around slowly, and something in her expression caused Ethan's smile to falter. "Big mistake," she said softly. Ethan opened his mouth to retort, but Alani's right hook connected squarely with his jaw before he could utter a sound. The crack of the impact was audible 20 feet away. Ethan's eyes rolled back in his head, and he collapsed to the asphalt like a sack of wet cement. His friends stared in stunned shock for half a second before they lunged forward. Blake swung first, but Alani ducked beneath his punch and drove her knee into his solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping for air. Chase grabbed for her arms, attempting to restrain her. Alani spun out of his grasp and caught him with an elbow to the ribs that sent him stumbling backward. The third friend, Owen, smaller but faster, managed to land a glancing blow to her shoulder before Alani's roundhouse kick caught him in the stomach and dropped him to his knees. The entire altercation lasted less than 30 seconds. Alani stood over Ethan's unconscious form, her chest heaving. Around the parking lot, students had their phones out, recording the entire event. Some were cheering, others looked on in terror. Alani Davis. Security guards were running toward them, their radios crackling. Alani offered no resistance as they took her arms, but her eyes remained fixed on Ethan's motionless body. "Somebody call an ambulance." One of the guards yelled. As they led Alani away, she heard another student exclaim, "Holy crap, did you see that?" She completely destroyed them. Ethan was beginning to stir, a trickle of blood seeping from his mouth. His friends were slowly getting to their feet, clutching their various injuries. The war had officially commenced. Principal Davies' office felt like a tribunal. Alani sat in a hard plastic chair, her mother beside her, while Davies shuffled papers with the frantic energy of someone desperately trying to avoid making eye contact. 5-day suspension, Davies announced without looking up. Alani initiated physical violence against 4 students, resulting in 1 concussion and numerous injuries. Frankly, she's fortunate the police are not involved. What about what they did to her? Alani's mother, Nina Davis, leaned forward in her seat. "That boy put his hands on my daughter in an inappropriate manner." According to eyewitness accounts, Ethan was merely speaking to Alani when she became violent. Davies finally looked up, his expression meticulously neutral. "There's no evidence of any inappropriate contact. There's a video of him slapping her backside." Nina's voice was rising. "Multiple students recorded it. I've personally reviewed the footage. It shows Alani striking Ethan without any provocation." Alani stared at him. "Without provocation? The video I was shown begins with you throwing the first punch. Whatever occurred before that is merely hearsay." Nina stood up. "This is beyond belief. So Ethan receives no disciplinary action at all?" Ethan and his friends were the victims of an unprovoked assault. They are currently receiving medical care and counseling services. Davies' tone made it clear the meeting was concluded. Alani will begin her suspension tomorrow. Upon her return, any further incidents will lead to expulsion and potential criminal charges. In the hallway outside the office, Alani's hands trembled with rage. "They manipulated the video, cut out everything that happened before I hit him." "I know, sweetie." Nina wrapped an arm around her daughter. "We will figure this out." That evening, Alani sat at the kitchen table, staring at her untouched meal, while her parents spoke in hushed tones by the sink. Her father, Marcus Davis, had been silent since Nina explained the events at the school. Finally, Marcus sat down opposite Alani. "Tell me precisely what happened. Every single detail." Alani recounted the weeks of harassment, Ethan's escalating aggression, the futile meeting with the counselor, and finally the parking lot confrontation. Marcus listened without a single interruption, his jaw tightening with each new detail. "You did the right thing," he said quietly when she had finished. "Marcus," Nina warned from the kitchen. "No, Nina, she did exactly what she was supposed to do." Marcus looked directly at Alani. "When someone lays their hands on you like that, after you have repeatedly told them to stop, you have every right to defend yourself. But I'm the one who got suspended because the system protects boys like Ethan. It always has." Marcus's voice was heavy with the weight of his own experiences. "But here is what they fail to understand. You didn't just defend yourself. You sent a message to every other predator in that school." Alani felt tears welling up. "It doesn't make a difference." Nothing changed. Everything changed. You just can't see it yet. Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. Your grandmother used to tell me, sometimes you have to fight the same battle twice before people realize you're serious. This isn't over, Alani. It's only just beginning. What do you mean? You showed them you can fight. Now you have to show them you won't stop fighting. Marcus squeezed her hand. But you can't do it by yourself. Find the others who have been hurt by this boy. Build something larger than just yourself. Meanwhile, across the school, Ethan sat in the nurse's office with an ice pack pressed against his jaw. His father, Harrison Knight, stood beside him like a sentinel, a cell phone pressed to his ear. Yes, I am aware the girl has been suspended, Harrison was saying. But 5 days is insufficient. My son could have been grievously injured. What do you mean there's a video? Ethan was the victim here. Ethan watched his father operate, making calls to school board members, threatening lawsuits, and leveraging years of political influence. Within an hour, the original, unedited video had been purged from the school's servers, replaced with the doctored footage that portrayed Alani as an unhinged attacker. Don't you worry, son, Harrison said after hanging up. This will all blow over, and that girl will think twice before she ever crosses a Knight again. But Ethan wasn't thinking about Alani's punishment. He was thinking about the moment her fist had connected with his jaw, the way she had moved, as if she knew exactly what she was doing. None of his previous targets had ever fought back. None of them had ever knocked him unconscious. 2 days into Alani's suspension, Leo Martinez was eating lunch alone in the library when he witnessed something that made his stomach plummet. Ethan and his crew were cornering a freshman girl by the water fountain, close enough that Leo could hear every single word. Come on, Chloe, don't be shy, Ethan was saying, his jaw still faintly swollen. I just want to have a word. I need to get to class, the girl whispered. Class can wait. We're having a conversation. Ethan moved closer, pinning her against the wall. Do you know what happened to the last girl who was rude to me? She got suspended, might even face expulsion. Leo had seen this exact scenario play out dozens of times over the past 2 years. Different victims, same predator, but something about watching it happen again, so soon after Alani's suspension, made him physically ill. Please, I just want to go to class. See, that's not how this operates, Ethan said. You show me a little respect. Maybe crack a smile and then we can discuss letting you leave. Leo stood up without even thinking. Hey. Ethan turned, annoyed by the interruption. What do you want, Taco Boy? Leave her alone. Ethan laughed. Or what? You going to call your girlfriend Alani? Oh, wait. She's suspended for being a violent thug. Leo's hands were shaking, but he held his ground. Just leave her alone. You know what? You're right. Ethan stepped away from the freshman. Chloe can go, but you and I need to have a little chat. The freshman girl fled without a backward glance. Ethan's friends moved to encircle Leo, who suddenly realized he had made a grave miscalculation. You think because Alani sucker punched me, that makes you tough, too? Ethan grabbed Leo by his shirt and slammed him against the lockers. Let me clarify something for you. That girl got lucky. It won't happen again. Leo tried to pull free, but Ethan's grip was like a vice. And if I hear that you've been running your mouth to anyone about what just happened, you're going to wish you had stayed in whatever border town you crawled out of. That afternoon, Leo walked home with a split lip and a blossoming black eye, Ethan's threats ringing in his ears. But he also walked home with something else, a phone number he had copied from the substitute teacher's roster. Alani answered on the second ring. Alani, this is Leo Martinez. We don't really know each other, but we need to talk. What happened to your voice? You sound like you've been crying. Leo touched his swollen lip. Ethan happened. Look, I know you're suspended, but when you come back, we need to meet. There are others. Kids who have been dealing with Ethan and his friends for years. How many others? Leo thought about all the students he had seen cornered in hallways, humiliated in bathrooms, and threatened into silence. More than you think. And after what you did to him, after seeing someone finally fight back, Leo's voice grew firmer. People are ready to listen. Alani was quiet for a long moment, recalling her father's words about building something bigger. Where do you want to meet? Behind the gym. The first day you're back. We'll figure out what to do next. After hanging up, Leo stared at his reflection in his bedroom mirror. For the first time in 2 years, he didn't look away from his bruises. Instead, he started compiling a list of names. Every kid he had seen Ethan's group target. Every student who had been too terrified to speak out. The war was about to expand. Alani's first day back at Northwood felt like entering hostile territory. Students stared as she walked by, some with admiration, others with fear. News of her suspension had circulated, but so had whispers about Ethan's unabated behavior in her absence. Behind the gym, Leo Martinez was waiting with 3 other students Alani didn't know. His split lip had closed, but the black eye was still a fading yellow smudge around the edges. "You came," Leo said, relief clear in his voice. "You said there were others." Alani surveyed the small gathering. "This is them?" A slender girl with short brown hair stepped forward. "I'm Sophia Reyes. Ethan and his friends cornered me in the bathroom last month, called me names, and threatened to dunk my head in the toilet if I told anyone." "Noah Williams," said a tall black sophomore. "They've been taking my lunch money since I was a freshman. Yesterday, they slammed me into the trophy case and told everyone I was trying to steal something." The third student, a pale boy with thick glasses, barely whispered his name. "Sam Lee. They forced me to do their homework." Alani felt her father's words resonate in her mind. "Build something bigger than just you." "How many more are there?" she asked. Leo produced a folded piece of paper. "I've been making a list. Kids who've been targeted, kids who've been threatened, kids who just keep their heads down because they're afraid." He handed her the paper. "There are at least 20 names on here, and that's only the ones I know for sure." Alani unfolded the list and scanned the names. Some she recognized from her classes. Others were complete strangers. "They can't suspend all of us." "That's what I was thinking," Leo said. "But we need a strategy. We can't just start throwing punches at random." Sophia spoke up, her voice stronger now. "What if we don't throw the first punch? What if we just stop running away?" "What do you mean?" Sam asked. "I mean, when they corner you, you hold your ground. When they try to intimidate you, you refuse to back down. When they put their hands on you," Sophia looked at Alani, "you defend yourself." Alani nodded slowly. "My dad taught me a few things. Basic self-defense." "I could show you." "You'd do that?" Noah asked. "Ethan's not going to stop. The school's not going to help us. So we help ourselves." Alani folded the list and tucked it into her pocket. "But everyone needs to realize, once we begin this, there's no turning back. They're going to come after us even harder." "They're already coming after us," Leo said. "At least this way we hit back." Alani looked at each of them in turn. "Okay, we meet here every day after school. I'll teach you what I know, but remember, we are not starting fights. We are finishing them." Over the next 3 days, their group expanded. Word spread quietly through the school's hidden network of victims and outcasts. Students who had been enduring their torment in silence began to find their way to the meetings behind the gym. Alani taught them basic blocks, how to break free from grabs, and where to strike to cause maximum impact. She showed Sophia how to use her speed to maintain distance. She taught Noah how to leverage his height advantage. She helped Sam overcome his fear of physical confrontation. The most crucial thing, Alani told them on Thursday, is to not fight fair. They don't fight fair, so neither do we. You aim for the eyes, throat, knees, whatever it takes to get away safely. Leo watched her demonstrate a knee strike and realized Alani was becoming something more than just another victim who had fought back. She was becoming their leader. Meanwhile, Ethan had noticed the whispers. Students who used to flee when they saw him approaching were now making eye contact. Kids who had been easy targets were walking with a different posture, standing taller. "Something's happening," he told Blake, as they stood by their lockers Friday afternoon. "These losers are acting strange." "Strange how?" "Like they're not afraid anymore. That freshman girl, Sophia, she didn't even flinch when I walked past her yesterday." Blake shrugged. "Maybe they're just getting used to you being back." But Ethan knew it was more than that. He had constructed his reputation on a foundation of fear, and fear was a fragile thing. Once people stopped being afraid, everything changed. "We need to send a message," Ethan said. "Remind everyone what happens when you fail to show proper respect." "What kind of message?" Ethan's eyes scanned the hallway until they settled on Leo Martinez, who was walking toward the exit with a sense of purpose instead of his usual nervous shuffle. The kind that leaves a permanent mark, As the weekend drew near, both sides braced for what everyone could feel was coming. Alani's group had grown to 15 students, all of them learning to fight, all of them prepared to defend themselves and each other. Ethan's group had also expanded, recruiting older students and even some recent graduates who still lingered around the school. The battle lines were being established. Alani spent the weekend practicing combinations in her backyard, her father observing from the porch. "Are you certain about this path?" Marcus asked during a break. Alani wiped sweat from her forehead and glanced back at the house where her mother was pacing by the kitchen window, sick with worry about what was to come. "No," Alani said honestly, "but it's the only path that leads anywhere good." Monday morning couldn't arrive quickly enough. Monday morning brought the first true test. Leo was walking to his locker when Ethan and Blake cornered him by the stairwell, the same place they had ambushed him dozens of times before. But this time, Leo didn't look away. "Well, well," Ethan said, stepping closer. "Look who thinks he's a tough guy now." "I'm not looking for trouble," Leo said. But he didn't retreat. "Too bad. Trouble found you." Ethan shoved Leo hard against the concrete wall. "I hear you've been talking to people, making lists. Is that true?" Leo felt his heart hammering, but Alani's voice echoed in his mind. "Don't fight fair. Go for whatever it takes to get away safe." "I don't know what you're talking about." Ethan grabbed Leo's shirt and pulled him forward, then slammed him back against the wall. "Don't lie to me, Taco Boy. You and that psycho girl have been recruiting losers for your little club. Let go of me, or what?" Ethan laughed. "You going to call your—" Leo's knee drove upward into Ethan's groin with all the force he could muster. Ethan doubled over, gasping, and Leo broke free, sprinting toward the main hallway where there would be teachers. "Get him!" Ethan wheezed, but Leo was already gone. 20 minutes later, during first period, Sophia Reyes was leaving the bathroom when 3 senior girls blocked her path. Alani had warned them that Ethan might recruit others, but Sophia hadn't anticipated this. "You're Sophia, right?" The lead girl, a blonde cheerleader named Jessica, smiled coldly. "I'm a friend of Ethan's." "Okay," Sophia said, trying to step around them. "Not so fast." Jessica moved to block her again. "Ethan told me you've been spreading lies about him." "That's not very nice." "I haven't said anything that isn't true. See, that's the problem. Truth is subjective." Jessica stepped closer. "And Ethan's family has been very generous to this school." "Your family? Nobody even knows who you are." Sophia felt the familiar fear creeping up her throat. But then she remembered Alani's words about standing your ground. "Move," Sophia said firmly. "Excuse me?" I said move. "I need to get to class." Jessica's smile vanished. "You little—" Sophia didn't wait for her to finish. She pushed past Jessica with enough force to send the cheerleader stumbling backward into the sink. "You're going to regret this," Jessica called out as Sophia walked away. By lunch, news of both incidents had spread. Alani sat with her growing group in a corner of the cafeteria, watching Ethan's table across the room. "They're recruiting," Noah said quietly. "I saw Ethan talking to some of the football players during PE." "How many?" Alani asked. "Yeah, maybe 6 or 7. "Big guys?" Sam looked terrified. "What if they come after us all at once?" "Then we stick together," Alani said. "Nobody walks alone. Buddy system everywhere." Across the cafeteria, Ethan was indeed assembling his own army. His jaw still ached from Leo's knee, and the humiliation burned hotter than the physical pain. "I want them isolated," Ethan told the football players he'd recruited. "Pick them off one by one. Show the rest of the school what happens when you mess with us." "What about the girl?" asked Dylan, a senior linebacker, "the one who started all this?" Ethan's eyes found Alani across the room. She was sitting with her back to the wall, positioned so she could see the entire cafeteria. Smart. Save her for last. Let her watch her little army fall apart first. After school, Alani's group had barely begun their training session behind the gym when Principal Davies appeared with 2 security guards. "This gathering is unauthorized," Davies announced. "You are all to disperse immediately." "We're not doing anything wrong," Alani said. "We're just talking. Reports indicate you've been teaching students to fight. That constitutes planning violence on school property." Alani felt rage building in her chest. "What about Ethan recruiting football players to attack us? Where's his punishment?" "I don't know what you're talking about. Ethan Knight has not been involved in any incidents since your unprovoked attack on him." "This is unbelievable," Sophia said. Davies turned his attention to her. "Miss Reyes, your parents received a call today about your altercation with another student in the bathroom. One more incident, and you'll face suspension." "She didn't start anything," Leo protested. "Mr. Martinez, you're already on thin ice after your fight this morning. I suggest you keep your mouth shut." As Davies and the guards walked away, Alani's group stood in stunned silence. "They're protecting him," Sam whispered. "No matter what he does, they're going to protect him." Alani clenched her fists. "Then we protect ourselves." "How?" Noah asked. "They'll suspend us for breathing wrong, but Ethan can do whatever he wants." Alani looked at her friends because that's what they had become, united by shared trauma and determination. Her father's words returned to her. "Sometimes you have to fight the same battle twice before people understand you're serious." "We make it impossible to ignore," she said quietly. "We make it so big, so public, that they can't cover it up anymore." "What are you thinking?" Leo asked. Alani's smile was as sharp as a blade. "War." Tuesday after school, Alani stood before 23 students gathered in the abandoned maintenance shed behind the football field. Word had spread through underground networks. The outcasts, the bullied, the forgotten, they'd found a new meeting place after being banned from school property. "I know you're all scared," Alani began, her voice carrying across the cramped space. "I know because I was scared too. Scared of Ethan, scared of his friends, scared of a system that protects predators and punishes victims." The group listened in silence. Some sat on overturned crates, others leaned against rusted equipment. All of them bore the invisible scars of Ethan's reign of terror. But yesterday, something shifted. Leo fought back. Sophia fought back. They stood up to bullies who thought they owned the school. Alani's voice grew stronger. "And you know what happened? The bullies got hurt. The bullies got scared. For the first time in years, they felt what we've been feeling every single day." "What if they expel us?" Sam asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if they don't?" Alani shot back. "What if we keep taking their abuse until we graduate? What happens to the kids who come after us? Do we just leave them to suffer like we did?" Silence filled the shed. Alani could see the internal struggle on every face, the war between fear and hope, between self-preservation and justice. "My dad told me something," Alani continued. "He said, sometimes you have to fight the same battle twice before people understand you're serious. Well, I'm done fighting alone. We all are." A junior named Jamal, who'd been quiet until now, spoke up. "My little sister starts here next year. She's tiny, barely 5 feet tall. If Ethan's still here when she arrives," his hands clenched into fists, "I can't let that happen." "Then don't," Alani said simply. "Help us stop it." "How?" Sophia asked. "They've got the administration. They got their parents' money. They've got everything." "They don't have numbers," Leo said, standing up. "There are more of us than there are of them. There always have been." Alani nodded. "The only reason Ethan has power is because we gave it to him, because we scattered when he showed up, because we suffered in silence, because we let him pick us off one by one." She walked to the center of the group. "No more. From now on, when Ethan or his friends approach any of us, we don't run. We don't hide. We stand together and we fight back." "What if someone gets seriously hurt?" a sophomore girl asked. Alani's expression hardened. "People are already getting hurt every day. The difference is, now Ethan's going to hurt, too." Across town, Ethan sat in his bedroom, nursing a bag of ice against his groin while his father paced angrily. "This is getting out of hand," Harrison Knight said. "First that Davis girl attacks you. Now other students are getting aggressive. The school needs to crack down harder?" "It's fine, Dad. I can handle a few losers." "This isn't about what you can handle. This is about respect, about maintaining order." Harrison stopped pacing and looked at his son. "Maybe it's time to involve the police, file assault charges against some of these kids." Ethan considered this. The idea of watching Alani get arrested held a certain appeal, but something about it felt like admitting defeat, like he couldn't handle his own battles. "Not yet," Ethan said. "Give me a few more days." Back at the shed, Alani was wrapping up her speech. "I won't lie to you. This is going to get worse before it gets better. They're going to try to break us, to make us afraid again. Some of you might get suspended or expelled. Some of you might get hurt." The group exchanged nervous glances, but nobody left. But here's what I know for sure, Alani continued, her voice rising with passion. We're already hurt. We're already broken. We're already afraid. The only difference is, now we're going to make them feel it too. She looked around the room, making eye contact with each person. Anyone who wants to leave can go right now. No judgment, no hard feelings. But if you stay, you're committed. We protect each other. We fight for each other. And we don't stop until Ethan and his friends are finished. Sam Lee stood up slowly, his hands shaking, but his voice steady. I'm tired of being afraid. One by one, others stood. Sophia, Noah, Jamal, Leo, until all 23 students were on their feet. Then let's make them afraid instead, Alani said. As the group dispersed into the evening darkness, Alani felt the weight of leadership settling on her shoulders. These weren't just fellow victims anymore. They were soldiers in a war she had started. And wars, she was beginning to understand, always had casualties. The question was whether she could live with the ones that were coming. Wednesday morning erupted into chaos. Ethan's football recruits struck first, cornering Sam Lee in the bathroom before first period. But this time Sam wasn't alone. Noah and 2 other students burst through the door just as the attack began. Get off him! Noah shouted, throwing himself at the nearest football player. The bathroom became a war zone. Fists flew, bodies slammed against tile walls, and the sound of fighting echoed through the hallways. Other students gathered outside, some filming, others running to get teachers. By the time security arrived, 3 football players were on the ground, and Sam was standing, bloody but victorious, supported by his friends. What happened here? Demanded Mr. Evans, the head of security. They attacked us, Noah panted, wiping blood from his nose. That's not what I saw, said Dylan, the linebacker, struggling to his feet. These kids jumped us for no reason. Within an hour, 5 of Alani's group were suspended. But word of their victory spread like wildfire. For the first time, Ethan's people had lost a fight. At lunch, Ethan's table was noticeably quieter. His remaining allies kept glancing around nervously, as if expecting another attack. This is getting out of control, Blake muttered, picking at his sandwich. Maybe we should back off for a while. Back off. Ethan's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. You want to let these losers think they can beat us? I'm just saying, maybe what? Maybe we should let Alani Davis turn this whole school against us? Ethan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. No way. Tonight we end this. Meanwhile, Alani sat with her remaining group in the library, trying to process what had happened. 5 suspensions, Sophia said quietly. Sam, Noah, Jamal, and 2 others gone. But they won, Leo pointed out. Ethan's football players got destroyed, and now they'll come back twice as hard, Alani said. She felt responsible for every bruise, every suspension, every escalation. This is my fault. No, said a new voice. Alani turned to see Hannah Cho, a quiet junior she barely knew. This is Ethan's fault. It's always been Ethan's fault. Hannah sat down at their table uninvited. I've been watching this war from the sidelines, and I can't stay quiet anymore. Ethan and his friends cornered my friend Emily last month, made her cry, made her skip school for a week. I should have done something then. Why didn't you? Sophia asked, not accusingly, but genuinely curious. Same reason everyone else doesn't. Fear. Hannah's voice grew stronger. But watching you all fight back, watching Sam stand up to those football players, I realized I'm more afraid of staying quiet than I am of fighting. Alani felt a spark of hope. How many others feel like you do? More than you think. A lot more. That afternoon, Ethan gathered his remaining forces in the parking lot. Word had reached him about Hannah Cho's defection, and he was furious. They're recruiting faster than we can shut them down, he told his assembled group. Time for a new strategy. What kind of strategy? Asked Chase. Ethan's smile was cold and calculating, the kind that sends Alani Davis to the hospital. Meanwhile, at the maintenance shed, Alani's group had swelled to over 30 students. The bathroom victory had emboldened others to join, but Alani could see the fear in their eyes. They wanted to fight, but they weren't prepared for what Ethan might do next. We need to be smarter, Alani told them. No more small skirmishes. If we're going to do this, we do it big. What do you mean? Hannah asked. Alani looked around at the faces staring back at her. Some eager, some terrified, all trusting her to lead them safely through this war. Tomorrow morning, Ethan's going to try something big. I can feel it, so we'll be ready for him. Alani's voice carried the weight of command. All of us together in the main hallway where everyone can see. You want us to fight in front of the whole school? Sam's replacement, a sophomore named Ryan, looked pale. I want us to win in front of the whole school, Alani corrected. I want every student, every teacher, every administrator to see that Ethan Knight doesn't run Northwood High anymore. Leo stepped forward. What if they bring weapons? Alani's expression darkened. Then we better make sure we're ready for anything. As the meeting broke up, Alani felt the familiar weight of responsibility pressing down on her. Tomorrow would either end Ethan's reign of terror or destroy everything she'd built. Either way, there would be no going back. Later that night, Ethan made a phone call that would change everything. Dad, I need to ask you a favor. It's about that Davis girl and her gang. Things have gotten complicated. The war was about to become something much bigger than a school fight, and Alani had no idea what was coming. Thursday morning arrived like a storm front. Alani reached school early, positioning herself and her core group in the main hallway before most students arrived. They'd agreed on a simple plan. Stay together, don't start anything, but be ready for everything. By first period, the tension was electric. Students moved through the hallways in clusters, choosing sides with their feet. Alani's group had grown overnight to nearly 40 students, while Ethan's alliance had recruited graduates and older kids who had no business being on campus. At 9:30 a.m., during the passing period between first and second classes, everything exploded at once. It started when Ethan's football recruits cornered 3 freshmen who'd been sitting with Alani's group at lunch. What should have been another isolated attack became the spark that lit the fuse. Get off them! Hannah Cho screamed from across the hallway. Suddenly, everyone was moving. Alani's people rushed to help the freshmen while Ethan's allies moved to intercept them. Within seconds, the main hallway erupted into complete chaos. Bodies slammed into lockers, textbooks flew through the air, and the sound of fighting echoed off the walls. Students who weren't involved pressed themselves against classroom doors, some screaming, others pulling out phones to record. Alani found herself fighting 2 seniors at once, using the confined space of the hallway to her advantage. She kicked one into the trophy case, sending glass exploding across the floor, then spun to catch the second with an elbow to the jaw. Across the hall, Leo was grappling with Blake, while Sophia and 3 other girls had Jessica pinned against the wall. The cheerleader was scratching and biting like a wild animal, screaming obscenities that would have gotten her expelled if anyone in authority actually cared. This is insane, Sam's replacement shouted over the noise as he ducked a thrown textbook. More students poured out of classrooms, some to join the fight, others just to watch. The riot was spreading beyond the original combatants as onlookers got pulled into the violence. Ethan appeared through the crowd, his face twisted with rage. Alani, this ends now. But before he could reach her, a fire alarm began blaring. Someone had pulled it during the chaos, and now sprinklers were activating throughout the building. Water rained down on the fighting students, making the floors slippery and dangerous. Several people went down hard on the wet tile, but the fighting continued. Everyone stop! A teacher's voice cut through the noise, but nobody was listening anymore. Alani slipped on the wet floor and went down, immediately rolling to avoid a kick from one of Ethan's recruits. She swept his legs and sent him crashing into a group of lockers. The riot had taken on a life of its own. Students who'd never been involved in the original conflict were throwing punches, settling old scores, or just getting caught up in the violence. The careful battle lines Alani and Ethan had drawn had dissolved into pure chaos. Through the sprinkler rain and the screaming, Alani caught sight of Principal Davies standing at the far end of the hallway with a phone pressed to his ear. His face was pale as he spoke rapidly to whoever was on the other end. "We need immediate assistance," she heard him say. Multiple fights, property damage, complete loss of control. Alani realized this was exactly what Ethan's father had been waiting for, an excuse to bring in outside force to crush her movement permanently. A window shattered as someone was thrown against it. Glass joined the water on the floor, making footing even more treacherous. Several students were bleeding now, though whether from punches or cuts from the debris, Alani couldn't tell. "Alani!" Leo appeared beside her, his shirt torn and his lips split. "We need to get out of here." "No!" Alani shouted back over the noise. "We can't run now." But even as she said it, Alani could see they were losing control. This wasn't the disciplined resistance she'd planned. It was a brawl that was getting more dangerous by the minute. Ethan emerged from the crowd again, water streaming down his face, his eyes wild with something between fury and panic. "Look what you've done," he screamed at Alani. "You've destroyed everything." "I've exposed everything," Alani screamed back. Around them, the riot continued to spread. More windows broke, lockers were torn open, and the sprinkler system was flooding the entire first floor. The sound of sirens could be heard in the distance, growing louder. Alani looked around at the chaos she'd helped create. Students fighting, bleeding, screaming. Water everywhere. Glass crunching underfoot. This wasn't justice. This wasn't victory. This was exactly what Ethan's father needed to justify whatever he had planned. But it was too late to stop now. The war had escalated beyond anyone's control, and the real battle was about to begin. The sirens were getting closer. The riot was dying down as exhaustion set in, but Alani and Ethan found themselves alone in the center of the flooded hallway. Other students had either fled or collapsed against the walls, watching through the sprinkler rain as the two leaders faced each other. "You and me," Ethan panted, wiping blood from his mouth. "No friends, no backup. Just us." Alani circled him slowly, her sneakers splashing in the ankle-deep water. "Fine by me." They'd been building to this moment for weeks. All the harassment, the humiliation, the violence had led to this final confrontation. Around them, the broken glass and overturned lockers created an arena of destruction. Ethan threw the first punch, a wild haymaker that Alani ducked easily. His boxing lessons hadn't prepared him for fighting in water while exhausted from a riot. Alani countered with a sharp jab to his ribs, then followed with a knee strike that caught him in the stomach. Ethan doubled over, gasping. "Had enough?" Alani asked. "Just getting started," Ethan wheezed, then lunged forward, tackling Alani around the waist. They went down hard into the flooded hallway, Ethan's weight pinning Alani beneath the water. She struggled against his grip, feeling panic as water filled her nose and mouth. Alani drove her elbow into Ethan's kidney, forcing him to release her. She rolled away and came up coughing, water streaming from her hair. "You think you're so tough?" Ethan was back on his feet, his face twisted with rage. "You think you can just come to my school and change everything?" "It's not your school," Alani shot back. "It's not your kingdom. You're just another bully who's about to get what's coming to him." Ethan charged again, but this time Alani was ready. She sidestepped and used his momentum against him, sending him crashing into the lockers. The impact echoed through the hallway. Meanwhile, outside the school, police cars surrounded the building. Officers in riot gear prepared to enter, but they weren't the only ones arriving. News vans pulled up as reporters caught wind of the massive fight at Northwood High. Parents were speeding toward the school after receiving emergency calls. And among them, Harrison Knight sat in his Mercedes, a satisfied smile on his face as he spoke into his phone. "Yes, it's exactly what we discussed," he told the voice on the other end. "Gang violence, property damage, complete breakdown of order. Alani Davis has turned a peaceful school into a war zone." But Harrison wasn't the only parent making calls. Nina Davis was racing toward the school, her hand shaking as she dialed her husband's number. "Marcus, something's happened at Alani's school. There's been a fight, a big one. The police are there." "I'm on my way," came Marcus's voice through the speaker. Back inside, Alani and Ethan continued their brutal fight. Ethan had landed several good hits, and Alani's left eye was swelling shut. But Ethan wasn't faring much better. His nose was clearly broken, and he was favoring his right side, where Alani had repeatedly targeted his ribs. "You destroyed everything," Ethan screamed, throwing another wild punch. "This school was perfect before you came here." Alani blocked the punch and drove her fist into Ethan's solar plexus. "Perfect for who?" "Perfect for you and your friends while everyone else suffered." Ethan staggered backward, his breathing labored. "My family built this place. We made it what it is." "You made it a nightmare," Alani said, advancing on him. "For kids like Leo, like Sophia, like Sam. You made their lives hell because you could." "Because they deserved it," Ethan's voice cracked with desperation. "Because that's how the world works. Some people matter, and some people don't." Alani's next punch caught Ethan square in the jaw, the same spot where she'd first hit him weeks ago. This time, Ethan stayed down, blood pooling beneath his face in the water. The sound of heavy boots echoed from the school entrance. The police had arrived. "Everyone on the ground, hands behind your heads." The commands boomed through the hallways as officers in riot gear flooded the building. Alani looked down at Ethan's unconscious form, then at the destruction around her. Broken glass, flooded floors, scattered belongings. Students pressed against walls with fear in their eyes. She'd won the fight, but at what cost? "Alani Davis," an officer's voice cut through the chaos. "Step away from the victim and get on the ground now." As Alani slowly raised her hands, she saw something that made her heart sink. Ethan's father was walking behind the police officers, pointing directly at her. "That's her," Harrison Knight said to the lead officer. "That's the gang leader who organized all this violence." Alani realized she'd played right into their trap. The riot, the destruction, Ethan unconscious on the ground, it all painted her as the aggressor, the violent criminal who'd terrorized a peaceful school. But as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, Alani heard something that gave her hope. Student voices, dozens of them, all saying the same thing. She was defending herself. "Ethan started it. He's been bullying people for years." The truth was finally coming out. Even as Alani was being arrested, the question was whether anyone in authority would listen. The handcuffs bit into Alani's wrists as officers led her through the flooded hallway of Northwood High. Around her, the aftermath of the riot was evident. Broken glass crunched underfoot. Water dripped from damaged ceiling tiles, and students pressed against classroom doors watched her walk with expressions ranging from shock to admiration. "Alani, Alani, don't say anything." The voice cut through the chaos. Her father, Marcus Davis, was pushing through the crowd of police officers and paramedics. "Don't answer any questions without a lawyer." "Sir, step back," an officer commanded. But Marcus kept moving forward. "That's my daughter. I have a right to speak to my daughter." Alani turned her head, water still dripping from her hair, her left eye swollen nearly shut. "Dad, baby girl, look at me." Marcus's voice was steady despite the chaos around them. "You did what you had to do. You hear me? You protected yourself and your friends." "She assaulted multiple students," Detective Miller interjected, consulting his notes. "This looks like gang activity to me." "Gang activity?" Marcus's voice rose dangerously. "My daughter defending herself from harassment is gang activity?" Behind them, Ethan was being loaded onto a stretcher, still unconscious. Harrison Knight walked beside the paramedics, his expensive suit somehow untouched by the chaos. "Officer," Harrison called out, "I want to press full charges. Assault, battery, inciting a riot. That girl is a menace?" Marcus turned toward Harrison, his fists clenched. "Your son put his hands on my daughter. He's been harassing her for weeks." "That's not what the witnesses say," Harrison replied smoothly. "All I see is your daughter standing over my unconscious son." "Dad, it's okay," Alani said quietly. "I'm okay." Marcus looked at his daughter, wet, bruised, handcuffed, but standing tall. In her eyes, he saw the same determination he'd taught her in their backyard training sessions. "Remember what I told you about fighting the same battle twice?" Marcus said as the officers prepared to lead her away. "Yeah, this is the second fight, and this time the whole world's watching." As they moved through the school, Alani saw the reactions of her fellow students. Some of Ethan's friends looked satisfied, whispering among themselves about her arrest. But others, her people, watched with tears in their eyes and phones in their hands, recording everything. Leo Martinez broke free from a group of students and ran alongside her. "Alani, we got video of everything." The whole fight. Ethan throwing the first punch. "All of it." "Kid, get back," an officer warned. "No, you don't understand," Leo persisted. "We have proof she was defending herself." "Leo, be careful," Alani called over her shoulder. "Don't get arrested, too." Sophia Reyes was crying as Alani passed, her phone held high to record. "We're going to fix this. Everyone's going to know the truth." Outside the school, news vans were already arriving. The story of a massive fight at a suburban high school was spreading fast, especially with cell phone videos hitting social media in real time. Alani's mother, Nina, pushed through the crowd of reporters and onlookers. "Alani, baby, are you hurt?" "I'm fine, Mom," Alani called back, though her swollen eye told a different story. "This is harassment," Nina shouted at the officers. "Where were you when his son was attacking my daughter?" Detective Miller paused at the police car. "Ma'am, Your daughter initiated a riot that injured dozens of students and caused tens of thousands of dollars in damage. My daughter defended herself against a predator." Nina's voice cracked with emotion. "She did what you should have done. She stopped him." As they reached the patrol car, Alani saw Principal Davies standing near the school entrance, talking rapidly into his phone. He caught her eye for a moment, and Alani saw something unexpected: shame. Alani Davis, Detective Miller read from his notes as he opened the car door, "You're being charged with assault and battery, inciting a riot, and conspiracy to commit violence. You have the right to remain silent." Alani barely heard the Miranda rights. She was watching her friends through the car window. Leo organizing students to upload their videos. Sophia coordinating with parents who were arriving. Sam Lee limping but standing strong with the group. They weren't backing down. Even with their leader arrested, they were still fighting. As the patrol car pulled away from Northwood High, Alani saw something that made her heart swell with pride. Students were pouring out of the building, not in panic, but in organized protest. They formed a line along the sidewalk, holding up their phones, chanting her name. The war wasn't over. It was just getting started. Marcus Davis watched his daughter disappear into the police car, then turned to face the news cameras that were multiplying by the minute. "My daughter is not a criminal," he said clearly, his voice carrying across the parking lot. "She's a hero who stood up to a system that protects bullies and punishes victims, and we're going to prove it." The battle lines were drawn, and the whole world was watching. The courthouse steps were packed with protesters. 3 weeks later, Alani sat in the defendant's chair, watching through the window as hundreds of students held signs reading, "Justice for Alani" and "Stop Protecting Bullies." The media attention had exploded beyond anything she'd imagined. "Your Honor," District Attorney Evelyn Reed stood before Judge Thompson, her voice carrying the weight of authority. Alani Davis organized and led a criminal conspiracy that resulted in a riot causing over $50,000 in property damage. She turned Northwood High School into a battlefield. Alani's lawyer, a young public defender named Daniel Lee, Sam's older brother who'd taken the case pro bono, rose to respond. "Your Honor, Alani Davis is not a criminal. She's a victim who was forced to defend herself when every adult authority figure failed her." Judge Thompson, a stern woman in her 60s, looked over her glasses at the packed courtroom. "This is highly irregular. I have never seen this level of public interest in a juvenile case." The prosecution began their case with Principal Davies, who took the stand looking uncomfortable in his rarely worn suit. "Principal Davies," D.A. Reed began, "can you describe the defendant's behavior since transferring to Northwood High?" Alani Davis was disruptive from day one. She showed no respect for authority and seemed determined to cause problems. Daniel Lee stood for cross-examination. "Principal Davies, how many formal complaints did you receive about Ethan Knight's behavior toward other students?" Davies shifted uncomfortably. "I don't recall specific numbers." "Let me refresh your memory." Daniel held up a thick folder. 17 formal complaints over 2 years. "What action did you take?" "The Knight family has been very supportive of our school. Sometimes complaints are exaggerated by attention-seeking students." A murmur of anger rippled through the courtroom. Alani watched several of Ethan's former victims lean forward in their seats. "So you believed Ethan Knight over multiple victims because his family donated money to the school?" "Objection," the prosecutor called. "Sustained," Judge Thompson said, but her expression suggested she'd heard enough. The real bombshell came when Daniel Lee called Leo Martinez to the stand. "Leo, 3 days ago you discovered something on Ethan Knight's social media accounts. Can you tell the court what you found?" Leo's hand shook slightly as he spoke. "I found videos and posts that Ethan thought he'd deleted. They showed him planning attacks on students, bragging about harassment, and coordinating with his father to cover everything up. On the courtroom's display screen, a video began playing. It showed Ethan and his friends in Ethan's bedroom, planning their final assault on Alani's group. "We'll make it look like she started everything," Ethan's voice echoed through the silent courtroom. "My dad's already talked to the cops. They'll arrest her and her gang, and everything goes back to normal." Gasps rippled through the audience. Harrison Knight's face had gone pale in the front row, but the evidence wasn't finished. Leo had recovered months of deleted content. Ethan bragging about breaking in exotic girls. videos of him and his friends cornering students, even recordings of conversations with his father about using police connections to handle problems. Furthermore, Daniel continued, we have testimony from 47 students documenting years of systematic harassment that school officials ignored or covered up. One by one, Ethan's victims took the stand. Sophia Reyes described being cornered in bathrooms while teachers walked past. Sam Lee talked about being forced to do homework under threat of violence, his voice growing stronger with each word. Noah Williams detailed having his lunch money stolen weekly while administrators told him to try being nicer to his attackers. Each testimony built on the last, painting a picture of institutional failure that went far beyond one troubled student. The turning point came when Ethan himself took the stand. His lawyer had advised against it, but Harrison Knight insisted his son testify to clear his name. Ethan walked to the witness stand with his arm still in a sling, his face showing faded bruises from Alani's final punch. He'd clearly been coached, speaking carefully and avoiding eye contact with Alani. Ethan, his lawyer began gently, can you tell the court what happened the day of the fight? I was just trying to talk to Alani, to work things out peacefully. She'd been threatening me and my friends for weeks, organizing other students to attack us. And when you approached her that day, she immediately became violent, started throwing punches for no reason. I was just defending myself when she knocked me unconscious. The prosecutor smiled, confident in Ethan's performance. But under Daniel Lee's cross-examination, Ethan's arrogance began to show through his coached responses. Ethan, did you tell Alani Davis you could be her master, like in the old days? Ethan's lawyer objected, but Ethan was already answering. It was just a joke. She was being uptight about everything. A joke? I didn't mean it like that. Some people just don't have a sense of humor. Did you follow Alani to her car and make threatening comments? I was trying to be friendly. She kept rejecting my attempts to be nice. Did you slap Alani Davis's behind in the school parking lot? Ethan's lawyer objected again, but Ethan's temper was rising. She needed to learn some respect. Girls like her think they can just... Girls like her? Daniel interrupted. What do you mean by that? Ethan realized his mistake too late. I just meant, you meant black girls, didn't you? You meant girls who don't submit to your harassment should be taught lessons. That's not what I said, but it's what you meant. Just like when you told your friends you were going to break in the exotic animal, correct? Ethan's face flushed red. You're twisting my words. These are your words, Ethan. Your deleted social media posts, your text messages, your own voice on video. Daniel's voice rose with righteous anger. You targeted Alani Davis because she was black, because she was new, and because you thought you could get away with it like you had with dozens of other students. She was the violent one, Ethan shouted, abandoning all pretense of calm. She's the one who brought gang violence to our school. Before she came, everything was peaceful. Peaceful for who, Ethan? Peaceful for you while you terrorized other students? They deserved it. Ethan's voice cracked with desperation. That's how the world works. Some people matter and some people don't. The courtroom erupted. Judge Thompson slammed her gavel repeatedly, calling for order. But Ethan wasn't finished. My family built this town. We made that school what it is. Some little gangbanger doesn't get to come in and destroy everything we worked for. Daniel Lee let the words hang in the air, Ethan's true nature finally exposed for everyone to see. When order was restored, Judge Thompson's voice cut through the silence like a blade. I've heard enough. After reviewing all evidence and testimony, it's clear that Alani Davis was defending herself against a pattern of harassment and assault that school officials not only ignored, but actively covered up. Her voice carried the weight of justice finally being served. All charges against Alani Davis are dismissed. The courtroom exploded in cheers. Outside, the crowd of supporters erupted in celebration, their chants audible even through the courthouse walls. But Judge Thompson wasn't finished. Furthermore, I am ordering a full investigation into the handling of bullying complaints at Northwood High School. Ethan Knight will face charges for assault, harassment, and conspiracy. And I am recommending that the state review the entire district's policies on student safety. Alani felt tears streaming down her face as her friends surrounded her, all of them crying and laughing at the same time. Her parents engulfed her in a fierce hug while reporters shouted questions and cameras flashed. Through the chaos, Alani caught sight of Ethan being led away in handcuffs, his father following with his head down, finally facing the consequences of their actions. They had won. Not just the legal battle, but something bigger. They had changed everything. 6 months later, Alani walked through the halls of Northwood High School, but everything was different. New anti-bullying posters lined the walls, reporting hotlines were prominently displayed, and most importantly, she could feel the difference in the atmosphere. "Alani," Leo Santos jogged up to her, a huge grin on his face. "Did you see the news?" "What news?" "Ethan got sentenced yesterday. 2 years in juvenile detention, plus community service when he gets out. And his dad lost his seat on the school board." Alani nodded, feeling a complex mix of satisfaction and sadness. Justice had been served, but she took no joy in Ethan's downfall, only relief that he could no longer hurt others. Sophia Reyes appeared at Alani's locker, practically bouncing with excitement. "Also, did you hear about Principal Davies?" "What about him?" "He's gone. Forced resignation. And guess who they're bringing in as interim principal?" Sophia's smile was infectious. "Coach Morales. She's already implementing the new policies." Alani felt a genuine smile spread across her face. Coach Morales had been one of the few adults who'd supported her from the beginning, recognizing her Muay Thai skills and understanding the situation she'd been facing. As they walked toward their first class, Alani noticed something that still amazed her 6 months later. Students walking confidently through the halls. No one hugged the walls anymore. No one kept their heads down in fear. The atmosphere of terror that Ethan and his friends had created was gone. "Alani Davis, report to the principal's office, please." The announcement echoed through the hallway, but this time Alani wasn't worried. These calls had become routine since Coach Morales took over. In the principal's office, Alani found an unexpected gathering. Coach Morales sat behind the desk, but she wasn't alone. Sam Lee was there, along with Noah Williams and several other students Alani didn't immediately recognize. "Alani, sit down," Coach Morales said warmly. "I wanted you to meet some people." The unfamiliar students introduced themselves. They were from other schools across the state, all dealing with their own bullying situations. "We heard about what you did here," said a girl named Olivia from a school an hour away. "We want to do the same thing at our school, but we need help. We need to know how you organized everyone." Alani looked around the room at the eager faces. Over the past months, she'd received hundreds of messages from students across the country asking for advice, sharing their own stories, requesting help. "The first thing you need to understand," Alani said carefully, "is that what happened here got really bad before it got better. People got hurt. I got arrested. It was a war, and wars have casualties." "But it worked," Sam said quietly. "Ethan's gone. The administration changed, and bullying reports are actually being taken seriously now." Alani nodded. "It worked, but there might have been other ways, better ways." "What would you do differently?" Noah asked. Alani thought about this question, which she'd been asking herself for months. "I'd try harder to work with adults first. I'd document everything better from the beginning, and I'd focus more on changing the system instead of just fighting the symptoms." Coach Morales leaned forward. "That's actually why I asked you all here. The district is implementing a new peer mediation program, and they want Alani to help design it." "Me?" "You've become something of an expert on student conflict resolution," Coach Morales smiled. "Your case is being studied by school districts across the country. They want to learn from what happened here." The meeting continued for another hour, with Alani sharing strategies for organization, documentation, and building coalitions. As the students from other schools prepared to leave, Olivia approached Alani. "Thank you," she said simply. "You gave us hope." After everyone left, Alani found herself alone with Coach Morales. "How are you really doing?" the coach asked. "All the attention, the speaking requests, the interviews. That's a lot for anyone to handle." Alani considered the question honestly. "Some days I feel like a hero. Other days I feel like I just got lucky that things worked out. And some days I wonder if I just made everything worse for a while." "The fact that you question yourself shows wisdom," Coach Morales said. "Heroes in movies never doubt themselves. Real heroes always do." "What happens now?" "I graduate in a few months. Now you get to decide what kind of person you want to be going forward. The Alani Davis who fought Ethan, she was necessary, but the Alani Davis who prevents the next Ethan, she might be even more important. That evening, Alani sat in her backyard with her father, both of them practicing forms in the fading light. It had become their routine, a way to stay connected and centered amid all the chaos that had followed the trial. "Dad," Alani said during a break, "do you think I did the right thing?" Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead and looked at his daughter. "Baby girl, you did the only thing you could do, and because you did it, hundreds of other kids don't have to. But Ethan's life is ruined. His friends got expelled. Even some innocent people got caught up in everything. Ethan ruined his own life the moment he decided other people were objects for his entertainment," Marcus said firmly. "You didn't create that monster. You just refused to let him keep feeding." Alani's phone buzzed with another message from a student asking for help. She'd received thousands of them over the past months, each one representing someone who'd found courage from her story. "I think I know what I want to study in college," Alani said suddenly. "What's that?" "Social work or maybe law. Something where I can help change systems instead of just fighting individual battles." Marcus smiled. "Sounds like you learned the real lesson." "What's that?" "That the fight never really ends. It just changes shape." As summer approached, Alani found herself reflecting on everything that had changed. Ethan was serving his sentence and reportedly doing well in counseling, finally confronting the attitudes that had made him a predator. Principal Davies had taken a job in educational consulting, working to help other schools avoid the mistakes Northwood had made. Most importantly, the students Ethan had terrorized were thriving. Leo had been elected student body president. Sophia was starting a peer counseling program. Sam had found his voice and was applying to debate programs for college. The ripple effects extended far beyond Northwood. Alani's story had inspired policy changes in dozens of school districts. The Alani Davis Act was being debated in the state legislature, a bill requiring schools to have independent oversight for bullying complaints and real consequences for administrators who ignored them. On graduation day, Alani stood at the podium as valedictorian, looking out at her classmates and their families. "When I transferred to Northwood High 8 months ago," she began, "I just wanted to finish school quietly and move on with my life. I never wanted to become the center of a movement or the face of student activism." She paused, seeing Leo and Sophia in the audience, both grinning broadly. "But sometimes life doesn't give you the choice to stay quiet. Sometimes the right thing to do is the hard thing, the scary thing, the thing that changes everything." Alani's voice grew stronger. "We learned that standing up to bullies isn't just about throwing punches. It's about refusing to accept injustice as normal. It's about protecting people who can't protect themselves, and it's about believing that change is possible, even when the whole system seems designed to prevent it." The audience erupted in applause as Alani concluded her speech. In the crowd, she saw her parents beaming with pride, Coach Morales nodding approvingly, and dozens of students whose lives had been changed by the events of the past year. As Alani walked across the stage to receive her diploma, she thought about Ethan, hoping he was finding his own path to redemption. She thought about all the students who'd contacted her for help and the responsibility she felt to continue fighting for them. But mostly she thought about the future. College, law school, and a lifetime of work to ensure that what happened at Northwood would never happen again. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning.